Good evening. Welcome to another episode of my ongoing Dungeons and Dragons character optimization series, Gish Optimized, which I am streaming live here from Twitch. And if you wish to come and hang out as I talk nerdy Dungeons and Dragons stuff, please feel free to drop into chat. If you have any questions about this build guide, please feel free to ask them in chat, and I will be more than happy to answer them as I finish up. I will be monitoring chat as I go, but I'm going to be presenting this, so I won't be taking questions until the end. Now, before I start, I would like to say a little word about my wonderful collaborator here, Crow. Has been very sweet in helping me out with my various streams. He is a constant companion to me by my desk and is always happy to encourage me with various purrs. So I just want to add, everyone's very kind about telling people to drink water and take breaks for themselves while they stream. Um, also I would also recommend that you spend some time with your furry friends. They love us, they support us, they help us out as well. All right, so starting out tonight, I am going to be presenting for you a build that is very near and dear to my heart, one that focuses on the cleric, but turns the cleric into a full-on, completely badass, spell slinging, sword swinging, butt kicking Gish class. So this is what we're going to do for this evening, what I call the big bada boom Cleric-Sorcerer, or also the Merrin Valkire build. Now, the reason why I'm calling this the Merrin Valkire build is because I've played this build a number of times in my Dungeons and Dragons games, and every time I play it, I use the name Merrin for my character, and I've played it as a high elf. I've played it as an Azamar. I've played it as a straight class Tempest Cleric. I've played it as a Tempest Cleric with a multi-class dip. But no matter how many times I play it, I always use the name Merrin, and Merrin hails from my fantasy series Luthiel's Song. Merrin is the angelic spirit of the ocean moon Merrin, which bears her name, and she hails from this mystical place in the world of Osha, the world of Luthiel's Song. But she is also our main character, or at least the main character of that series' mother. And so I've added a little picture of Luthiel here to this particular build guide. I know oftentimes I will reference other fantasy types or memes, or possibly some more traditional memes from Dungeons and Dragons. But for this build, we're going to dive fully into the mojo of Luthiel's Song, which means we're going to be building a powerful spell-casting, sword-wielding, spell-slinging, and healing angel. And for this build, we are going to add a little bit of electricity, a little bit of the light show, maybe some wings, maybe some flight, maybe some extra mobility. Often clerics tend to suffer a bit from mobility, and a lot of light and, I guess, thunderous magic. Okay, so enough preamble. Let's jump right into the build here. At level 1, we're going to start out with a really broad view of gaming statistics. This will probably be the broadest statistics based build that I've done so far, And also, it will probably be the broadest build in the sense of what its capabilities are. So, diving right into statistics, we are going to start out with Wisdom, which is the main statistic for clerics. And we are going to throw 7 points into Wisdom to start out with a 14 pre-race stat bonuses. Wisdom is really important for us, and we need it to power our spells. And we also want to portray this character as very wise, very in touch with the beat of the world. She is, after all, a queen of an ocean moon, at least the way I'm building her. Of course, you can build your Tempest Cleric with Sorcerer dip however you like, as far as mojo goes. But I am making her Merrin. So yes, we are going to drop a lot of points into Wisdom at first, which makes a lot of sense because we are going to be playing a cleric primarily for this build. For our second ability, I'm going to focus on a high dexterity. Now, you might want to instead focus on a high strength. There are benefits and detractors for either. I like dexterity more because of the graceful nature of the character that I'm going for. And I also just generally tend to like dexterity builds a bit more than strength builds. I find that they feel more unique to me. And so we're going with dexterity as our second stat. And I'm going to go ahead and throw another 7 points into dex for another 14. Now, Constitution is very important for casters, as you probably well know, because you want to concentrate on those all important, long lasting, long duration concentration spells, and Constitution is the score that you use for that. And we don't want to neglect that score. So we're going to go ahead and drop 5 into Constitution. In addition, we are going to be fighting with this cleric. We're not going to be a tank, but we're going to be an off tank. We're going to be on the front lines, juking back and forth, dropping some powerful AoEs, oftentimes surrounding ourselves with auras of powerful magic. And in order to use these spells effectively, we want to be close in. In addition, we're going to build this character to fight well with a rapier, in fact, to fight very well with a rapier and to deliver some sometimes amazingly powerful critical strikes with this rapier. And so we want a high constitution so that we can get our Merrin up to the front and have her, able to survive the heat of combat. I don't want you to think of her as a tank. She's not going to stand and take all the heat, but we want to make her tough enough so that she can take some of the heat. So we drop 5 points into Constitution and start out with a 13. And last of all, for our main stats, you'll note that we have 4 here. This is a multi-attribute character, although we will focus on 2 main stats as we get our ability score increases. But at level 1, we have like a wide range of stats that we're going for here, which is kind of exciting. I mean, I like, it's nice to have a build that is so diverse. So we are also going to throw 5 starting points into Charisma for a starting Charisma of 13. This is going to unlock some really cool potentials for us that we're going to look at in just a little bit. But so so now after we have spent 7 points on wisdom, 7 points on dexterity, 5 points on constitution, and 5 points on charisma, that gives us a total of 24. We're using a 27-point buy because we want this character to be adventure league legal or legal for most of the games that I play in, which happen to be point buy games. And that gives us 3 points left over for intelligence and strength. Now, I spoke a bit about strength before. You could have dropped 7 points into strength to start out with a 14, and that would have been fine. I'm starting out with a 14 in dex, and I'm going to go ahead and dump strength to 8. Now, What I'm also going to do is go ahead and put the other 3 points into intelligence, because I think of Merrin as being relatively smart as well, and 11 intelligence is above average. So I feel good about that with our Merrin build. Um, so moving on to race, we are we are an angel from the ocean moon that bears our name. And so we are going to lean really heavily into our angelic aspect. I have another character that plays a semi angelic type, but with Merrin it feels even more angelic. We are playing cleric. We're going to lean pretty heavily into our healing nature, and so we are going to pick Azamar, and we are going to also pick Protector Azamar. So we are really leaning heavy into the angel nature here, and this angel is going to give us all sorts of great things. It's going to give us resistance to radiant and necrotic damage, which can be pretty devastating damage sources, particularly if we're fighting the foul undead. We're going to get the light spell as a cantrip, which it sounds like really normal. Oh, great light, but light does all sorts of really cool things and can hamper many foes. So it's something that also can help our party members, particularly if they happen to be humans. And a lot of people do. A lot of people like to play humans. There's nothing wrong with playing humans. I play all sorts of humans, but humans can't see very well in the dark. And having a buddy around that can carry around a light spell right on the tip of your sword, or on your horn, or something like that, really helps you. We also start out with dark vision, a nice ability called healing hands that will save our spells in some cases, and later on we get this wonderful ability called radiant soul, which allows us to unfurl spectral wings of light and to empower our attacks with radiant energy. So all of these things are just so flavorful and really helped for us to fill out the angelic mojo that we're going for. Now, Azamar also gives us 2 stat bonuses. It gives us a +2 to 1 stat using the Tasha's optional rules, and +1 to another stat. And we immediately throw the +2 into wisdom, so this will give us a 16 wisdom, and we throw the +1 into constitution, bumping our constitution up to 14. So this gives us a main array, a starting array of 8 strength, 14 con, 14 dexterity, 16 wisdom, 11 intelligence, and 13 charisma. So yeah, as I said before, very broad based, very widely skilled, with a lot of very cool starting abilities. So last of all, for first level, we come to class, and I'm going to make a choice that some of you might think of as a bit, what shall we say, unconventional. Um, but there are a lot of reasons why we're going to do this, and what we're going to do is we are going to take Sorcerer for our first level. And I know we're focused mainly on a cleric build, but we are going to take Sorcerer at first level. Why are we going to take Sorcerer? Well, Sorcerer gives us so many wonderful things that are going to help our Gish develop as we progress. And so the first thing that it's going to give us is proficiency in Constitution saving throws. And what that is going to do is it's going to really help us concentrate on those long duration concentration spells that we really need. Things like, oh, I don't know, Spirit Guardians, which we will talk about later, or Spirit Shroud, which is also a wonderful spell. Um, Next, as a sorcerer, we also gain access to melee cantrips. And because we want to use a weapon in combat really effectively and synergize our weapon use and spell use and our divine magic all together in these strikes, we are going to pick up a cantrip that I think works perfect for the Tempest Cleric, and that is Booming Blade. And we will use this all throughout our career as an adventurer to lay some big bada boom down on our foes. So at this point, we've already gotten, by taking this multi-class dip, we have already gotten two things that we would need to spend a feat for. We have gotten Booming Blade as a cantrip, and we have gotten proficiency in constitution saving throws, which is going to help us with our concentration spells. Oftentimes, clerics, especially if they wish to melee, struggle to get those things because, well, you want to have a high wisdom, you want to have a high ability in your main offensive stat, which is either dexterity or strength, and you also want to have proficiency in con saves. So all those things are really hard to do, and now we've done it just by taking this one level in sorcerer. But we also get some other really cool features from sorcerer that help us as a cleric, and I'm going to get into those two for you right now. The first thing is that the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to address one of the main shortcomings of a cleric, and that is a lack of mobility. We're going to, right off the bat, right from jump, straight out the door, we're going to throw some more cliches at this. We're going to nip this thing right in the bud, right? So we are going to take the Storm Sorcerer as first level sorcerer. And now we have this wonderful ability called Tempestuous Magic that allows us, whenever we cast a leveled spell with the Thunder or Lightning keyword, uh, it allows us to spend a bonus action to fly 10 feet into the air as winds of storm bear us aloft. And so it effectively adds 10 feet of movement, and this movement does not provoke opportunity attacks. So if we are surrounded by enemies and we say, for example, at first level, cast Thunder Wave, because we're going to take Thunder Wave as one of our first level spells, we can blast our enemies and then fly through the air 10 feet away, provoking no opportunity attacks. And that's as a bonus action. And as the rest of our movement, we can just run away. Now, this mobility option is not as amazing as some of the other mobility options that other classes can gain through abilities and spells. But with a cleric, I just tend to feel like I'm kind of stuck, where I am. And having any extra mobility is a really big deal for me. So this tempestuous magic, I feel, is really going to help this build move around the battlefield, position itself to deliver its powerful spells and melee attacks. Now, last of all, what the sorcerer gives us is some really cool spells. And for cantrips, we're going to go ahead and pick up Mage Hand, Shape Water, and Frostbite, giving us some utility options and a ranged option. We're relying on Charisma right now for first level, so we're not as potent a spellcaster as many. We're like 2 points behind on our main ability, but we're going to do our best to get through level 1 as just being okay at magic and really step into it at level 2. We already also picked up light, so we have 5 cantrips, which is amazing. And then in addition, we are taking for our levels spells a shield, which is an amazing defensive spell, and we are taking Thunder Wave, which I mentioned before, because we want to immediately access that mobility early on. So we have a pretty broad-ranged, broad-based character now, someone that's not extremely focused, but what we are going to do is add some more versatility to an already versatile build. And so what we are going to do is we are going to take the Strixhaven background Prismarty student. Now, if you don't have access to Prismari in your game, that's fine. You can make this build without taking this background and you'll be just amazing still. What Prismari does is it gives us another couple of really cool mobility options that I really want. So if I'm playing a game, I'm going to ask my game master, well, if I want to use this build, I'm going to ask the game master, hey, can I use the Strixhaven book and the Prismari student background? And if the game master says no, then it's cool. I mean, the character is already going to be amazing, and we'll get into that more. But having Prismari student as a background gives us a few more spells that really help to flesh us out. All right, so starting out, we are a sorcerer. We have some basic equipment, a dagger, a wand, some other basics. Our AC without the shield spell is only 12s, and we have an HP of 8. So we are pretty squishy. We're soft. We don't want to be in the front line fighting at this level. We want to hang back and lob cantrips at people. We want to maybe sneak up and blow some things up with Thunderwave and then get the heck out of there using our Tempestuous Magic to fly away. Um, and yeah, we want to make it through this level. We're not super resilient, but we do have a lot of options that we can use. Um, so don't forget the versatility of this character at level 1. Now moving on to level 2, we really start to come into our own because we immediately pick Tempest Cleric for our level 2 multiclass, and so we are now a Cleric 1 and we are a Sorcerer 1. Now, if level 1 looked really versatile, if a bit dangerous for us, because we took some risks to get here to level 2 gives us even more versatility, starts to put us into our core capabilities, and shores up our survivability. We jump immediately to 15 hit points, and we use our money that we gained in first level to buy ourselves some scale mail, a shield, a rapier, and probably a holy symbol because we're going to want it. Now our base AC is a 16 or an 18 if we're using the shield. If we cast a shield spell, our AC bumps up to 21. If we don't have a weapon in our hand and we cast the shield spell and we're wearing a shield, our AC bumps up to 23. So we are a heck of a lot more resilient now. We're not afraid to wade into melee combat and use our rapier or some other amazing cleric spells like inflict wounds when we need to. We are also now gaining some awesome cleric spells. And so we immediately pick up guidance, which is extraordinarily versatile. And we also pick up Sacred Flame, giving us a more powerful range spell option. In addition, from the Tempest domain, we get Fog Cloud and we get Thunderwave as well. We already had Thunderwave from Sorcerer, so this is a little bit of an overlap, but once we hit level 5, we train the Sorcerer spell out for, or we trade the Sorcerer spell out for another Sorcerer spell that we like at that level. Um, in addition, we pick up as our uh, regular cleric spells. For our slide spells, we pick up Healing Word, Cure Wounds, Guiding Bolt, and Inflict Wounds. And now we have an amazing combination of utility, healing, and damage type magic, as well as AoEs at second level. So we are now really starting to come into our own. Last of all, we gain the wonderful ability that is Wrath of the Storm. And Wrath of the Storm allows us to, whenever we are struck in combat, to send a little shock of lightning or burst of thunder back as a reaction at any enemy that attacks us. And this does 2d8 damage. If they make their save, they take half damage. But even so, to be able to do like a reaction damage that is not from a spell source is just really awesome. And given all the capability that we have now, we actually can Nova really hard at second level. For example, if we attack a creature with inflict wounds, we do 3d10 damage against that creature. And in addition to that, if they attack us back and hit, we use Wrath of the Storm and do another 9. So that's a total of 26.5 average damage. If we score a critical hit with Inflict Wounds, we do 44 total damage, including Wrath of the Storm, for a single target over the course of one round at level 2. So that's nuts. I mean, out of the gate, we are doing some pretty amazing stuff. Now, this is available for any Tempest Cleric, but we've also gotten all the amazing things from the Sorcerer, including the Shield spell and Booming Blade and the extra mobility and the Constitution save proficiency. So we're feeling really good about our dip right about now. Now, level 3, we move on to gain some more stuff from Cleric, but we also get the wonderful ability from the Protection Azamar Radiant Soul. Now we have a source of longer duration flight, 1-minute flight with our spectral wings. And in addition to that, we are buffing one of our attacks with +3 radiant damage. And this will scale with our level as we continue to go up in level. In addition, as a level 2 Tempest Cleric, we get the wonderful Channel Divinity ability that is Destructive Wrath. Now we can maximize the damage of our AoE blasts from Thunder Wave and upcast it to a level 2 spell to do a maximum of 24 damage in a 3x3 cube. And yeah, this is heavy, powerful damage for a 3rd level character in an AoE. I think we're pretty much outblasting anybody at this point. We're not going to be the best blaster in the world all through our career, but right now we probably are. Sure, our blast is relatively small. It's just 3x3. But man, if we can catch a few bads in that blast, boy, are they going to be hurting. In addition, we have the wonderful and amazing feature that is Turn Undead, which is a massive area control effect against undead. If you're a cleric, please do not forget that you have Turn Undead. I know as a Tempest Cleric, it's going to be easy to forget that because you're going to be like, oh, wow, I can do all this damage with Destructive Wrath. But there are times when you're just going to get mobbed by undead. Maybe. I don't know. This happened to us in our Saturday night game that I played on this stream. That was last night. Holy cow. And yeah. So yeah, Turn Undead is really good. Keep it, remember it, keep it close to your heart. All right, so we got a lot of really nice things at level 3. So moving on to level 4, we get a number of wonderful, some more wonderful things in our basket of goodies. We get a level 3 spell. I'm sorry, we get level 2 spells, and for level 2 spells, we pick Shatter, which we can amplify with our Destructive Wrath to cause even more destruction. It's in a 10-foot radius now. So still going to do the same damage, but the area has gotten bigger, and we're now throwing it out to a long range, or a longer range. We also get Gust of Wind from Tempest Cleric, which provides us with some nice situational control. For concentration, I'm going to recommend that if your Dungeon Master allows you to pick Prismari, that you go ahead and pick up the wonderful spell called Kinetic Jaunt. Now, what this spell allows you to do is add 10 feet to your movement speed. It prevents opportunity attacks when you move. And when you move, you can move through another creature. You can just go whoosh and just walk right through them. This is an amazing mobility effect, especially when stacked on to Tempestuous Magic. So say, for example, you have Kinetic Jaunt active and you cast Shatter. Your movement speed using a bonus action is now effectively 50 feet, which is extraordinarily fast, particularly for this level. And you can move through foes, and you're not provoking any opportunity attacks. If you have your Radiant Wings active from your Protector Azamar, you are flying through the air at 50 feet or through your foes at 50 feet of movement. So that is really, really amazing. Now, to get that total movement, you have to cast a Thunder or Lightning spell, and you have to spend your bonus action. When you're not spending your bonus action for that effect, I am going to recommend that you also pick up Spiritual Weapon, which is going to give you another attack option. So now we have a very versatile and mobile character that is able to lay down some punishing blasts, move very swiftly across the battlefield, um, get some extra attacks with the spiritual weapon. It's all looking really good. Now, considering all the damage effects that we can lay down with both our booming blade attack, our spiritual weapon, Wrath of the Storm, with Kinetic Jaunt, we're likely to trigger that booming blade rider. Remember, we don't attack, provoke an opportunity attack, so we can strike something and then move away. And if there's no other enemies adjacent to the foe and they don't have a ranged option, they have to move to come and attack you, and then you're doing another die damage from booming blade when it moves. So, and with Radiant and Soul active, if all those things trigger, you're doing an average of 31.5 damage over the course of a round. And that's pretty substantial against a single target at level 4. You're not like outpacing the Nova builds, but as a consistent damage, this is considerable. So I'm feeling really happy with our Tempestuous Angel Merrin at this point. Now, moving on to level 5, we bump up our dexterity to 16. Our booming blade becomes more powerful, and we're just feeling really good about ourselves. Level 5 is usually a good level for pretty much everybody. It's really good for us. It's maybe not as good for us as some of the other players, but we still have a lot going for us, so we're not feeling bad. Taking in all of these benefits, the last thing we do is, if we haven't already, we pick up Lesser Restoration, because Lesser Restoration is just a wonderful spell to have on your list for debuffs. If your buddies or you end up getting like, say for example, diseased, or ability damage or something like that, Lesser Restoration or blindness is really going to help you out. All right, so moving on to level 6. Level 6. Level 6 is when we really, really start to come into our own. I mean, we have certainly come into our own as a Tempest Cleric, right? We are laying down some serious AoE blasts. We are blasting sometimes hard enough to make some wizards jealous. We might not be out blasting, Fireball, but we can really pump up the volume on Shatter to make it hurt our foes badly. Now, at this level, at level 6 and that level 5 Cleric, because we took that level 1 dip in Sorcerer, we also pick up the wonderful Cleric spell that is Spirit Guardians. Now we can summon an aura filled with our god's chosen form, or our god's chosen weapon, or in this case, I don't know, a spirit guardian field of angry cats. um, I don't know. Merrin will probably summon a spirit guardian field of these swirling blade-like weapons that I call Catafe. That's also the form of her spiritual weapon. It's just like a ring of blades that unfolds like a flower on her shoulder and then flies off. So she will summon the Catafe to harass her foes in this aura of Spirit Guardians, which does 3d8 damage to any enemy in the zone, and it also slows the enemy's movement down by half, I believe. This is off the top of my head. So um, Spirit Guardians is a wonderful spell for clerics. I really like it. It's one of the reasons why I lean so heavily into Constitution. It adds a lot to our consistent damage, and it does AoE damage. So not only are we doing additional consistent damage to a single target, likely we're doing it to multiple targets as well. Spirit Guardians is one of my favorite spells in the entire game. Uh, DMs don't like it quite as much. I highly recommend that if you are a Tempest Cleric, and especially if you're using this build, that you take it at level 6. In addition, we get Call Lightning and Sleep Storm from Tempest Cleric. These are pretty good spells. Call Lightning is one of those nice spells that lasts for a long period of time and just gives you a fun blast of lightning every round, which is pretty awesome. I like it. I don't like it as much as Spirit Guardians unless like the foes are really far away and I want to rain lightning over like a large battlefield. And then of course there is Sleet Storm, which is amazing area control spell and can really mess enemy movement up, hamper visibility, break up large formations. Yeah, excellent control option. So you're getting some really, really good spells at level 6 with our Merrin build. Just briefly, I'm going to talk a lot about consistent damage with this build because this build really does really good consistent damage. And at level 6, that does start to come online. So when we are using Booming Blade, when we have Spiritual Weapon active, and we have Spirit Guardians active, and when Wrath of the Storm goes off, and with Radiant Soul up, see, like just all these buffs, it's just so wonderful. We can now do a total of 8 die 8 plus 12 damage to a single target if they fail all their saves. So that's 48 damage to a single target, and also 13.5 damage to multiple targets because we are also a walking sphere of destruction. And we can do this for consecutive rounds. We can do this every round, well, every round at least for 3 rounds with Wrath of the Storm, and then we subtract 9. And we're still doing high consistent damage to a single target and AoE damage. If Booming Blade procs, which is admittedly less frequent considering that we are not kinetic jaunting through people, um, the damage still bumps up to 57. On a critical hit, all these things added together ends up being 66. And if we are having Spirit Guardians active in this large, just continuous AoE, and we upcast Shatter to level 3 and use Destructive Wrath, the AoE damage we do over the course of a round for multiple targets is 45.5. So say for example, you have 3 targets that you're able to get into your Spirit Guardians, and then you drop one of these shatters on them and they are unlucky and they all fail their save. You've just done an effective 136.5 damage to those 3 targets in total. And that that's something. If you've got Radiant Soul active, you're adding 6 damage to one of those targets. So it's we can do some pretty amazing stuff with this build. Are you feeling the Bada Boom yet? I'm starting to feel the Bada Boom. Okay, in addition, we now destroy undead, which is nice with our turn undead as long as their challenge rating is less than 1/2, and we've probably bumped up our AC to around 19 because we probably picked up half plate. Our HP is 43 unless we've got a HP buffing item, but we're also probably casting Aid now to increase our hit points up to 48. So we got some mid-range hit points, some pretty high defenses. We're not feeling too bad about being close to melee, especially if we got some friends with us on the front line. Moving on to level 7, we get an extra channel divinity as we reach level 6 cleric. This lets us lay down some more booms, which is always good. We decide to pick up Mass Healing Word, which is like a large AoE heal that can get a lot of our buddies up off the ground as a bonus action, which is fantastic. Don't neglect Mass Healing Word. Please keep it. And we pick up a nice focus fire spell that we might want to use later called Spirit Shroud. Now, I don't really like Spirit Shroud as much in most cases as Spirit Guardians for our big bada boom cleric build, but there might be some cases, I don't know, say for example, someone's cast haste or we've quaffed a potion of speed and we want to leverage all the multiple attacks that we have now with Spirit Shroud. And we've got like Spiritual Weapon active because Spirit Shroud adds the damage buff, which at this level is going to be just plus 1 die 8 to each one of the attacks that you make against a target within 10 feet of you. And yeah, and in addition, Spirit Shroud also slows down your opponents, so it's also a bit of an area of control. It's not as big as Spirit Guardians, it's not doing AoE damage, but it does help us with Focus Fire. And this build does have some Focus Fire, which we will get into later. So we're going to get Spirit Shroud now. We might not use it so much, but we're going to put it in our back pocket and think about it maybe for later. Now, moving on to level 8, we're going to pick up Death Ward because Death Ward will save our butts sometimes. It will keep us from dying. Yes, there's a reason why they call it Death Ward. And we get Ice Storm and Control Water from our Tempest Cleric. Hitting level 8 and level 7 Cleric, we also now have access to 4th level Cleric spells. And yeah, so Death Ward is a really good option among those. It also, we now have 2 4th level slots, so we can lay down a lot of upcast spells. For example, we can now upcast Spirit Guardians to level 4 and do 4d8 damage in a 15-foot radius around us, and that turns us even more into a Combine. We can, if we have Spirit Guardians active and we add all of our little buffs together against a single target, if everything goes off and we roll a critical, we can do a total of 77 damage while still doing an average of 18 damage against targets that fail their saves in the Spirit Guardian's aura. So yes, we are really starting to be able to do both focus fire and AoE damage with this build, which is really nice. Now moving on to level 9, we finally get to level 8 Cleric and we bump our wisdom to 18. This gives us an 18 wisdom and a 16 dex. We also gain a 5th level spell slot, which we can use to, pump up our favorite buff and blast spells. And we also have a lot of spells in our list at this point, which is really nice. I picked up a really big list of spells. I don't know. Should I read them all to you now? I think I'll go ahead and read them all to you very quickly. So for cantrips, we have Light, Mage Hand, Booming Blade, Frostbite, Shape Water, Guidance, Sacred Flame, Word of Radiance, and Spare the Dying. For prepared spells, we have Shield, Magic Missile, Healing Word, Cure Wounds, Inflict Wounds, Thunder Wave, Fog Cloud, Kinetic Jaunt, Shatter, Spiritual Weapon, Gust of Wind, Lesser Restoration, Call Lightning, Sleet Storm, Spirit Guardians, Spirit Shroud, Mass Healing Word, Haste, Ice Storm, Control Water, Death Ward, and Freedom of Movement. Now that's a very versatile spell list that includes healings, buffs, blasts, mobility, control, and a few utility options. So yeah, we are a pretty awesome caster at this point. For a heavy blast, we can now upcast Shatter to level 5 and then use Destructive Wrath to do a maximum damage of to do 48 damage by maximizing the damage to all targets in a 10-foot radius. And that is some serious concentrated fire there. Now, for melee option, things just got a lot better because we also just got Divine Strike. So now we are doing a die 8 damage, thunder damage from Divine Strike. We are doing a die 8 thunder damage from Booming Blade. And we are doing a die 8 damage because we have a rapier. With our dex, we're doing 3 die 8 plus 3 damage for an average of 16.5, which is pretty good damage for a single strike. Coupled with a 4th level spiritual weapon, we're doing 5 die 8 plus 7, which is 29.5, which is really good consistent damage. And we haven't used all our buffs yet. So if we want to focus fire, we then upcast Spirit Shroud to level 5, and that gives us an additional 2 die 8 radiant damage on each of our strikes for a total of 9 die 8 plus 7 or 47.5. And now we're starting to talk a little bit about being a little badass here. Now, if we activate Radiant Soul by unfurling our wings, this goes up to 56.5, and the bads are starting to feel the heat. If they hit us and trigger Wrath of the Storm, we get to 65.5. And if Booming Blade procs, we can get this total up to 74.5, all without critical hits. Now, if we do crit, I do want to mention the interaction of Destructive Wrath with our thunder damage. Because what's going to happen is when we crit, that 2d8 thunder damage is going to go to 4d8 thunder damage because we double all the dice. And when we want to, we use Destructive Wrath to maximize those thunder damage dice. So now that 4d8, rather than becoming an average of 18 damage, becomes 32. So how do you like us now? So when we score a critical strike and all of our other damages go off and we have upcast Spirit Shroud to level 5, the total damage we are doing against a single target is 111. As a cleric, this is without Divine Smite. This is without Action Surge. This is without Great Weapon Fighter. And we get our multiple attacks by casting Spiritual Weapon. This is just so fun. This is so unique. This is really badass. This is, yeah, we like it. Bada boom. Okay, so now at level 10, we get the wonderful, amazing blast spell that is Destructive Wave. And boy, now we have really become the heart of the storm. Now we cast, if we want to blow a big hole in the ranks of our enemies, we upcast Spirit Guardians to level 5, and we do 5d8 damage within 15 feet. And then we walk into the midst of our enemies, and then the next round we cast Destructive Wave. And then we use Destructive Wrath to maximize the thunder portion of Destructive Wave, because Destructive Wave does 5d6 radiant damage and 5d6 thunder damage. So we end up doing a total from those two overlapping AoEs of 69. 69, dudes. 69 average damage if all the targets fail their saves in that area. And we're level 10. You know, we're not at Meteor Swarm level yet. This is, I mean, who else is going to do 69 damage to multiple foes when they fail their save? I don't know really of anybody. We're doing it from 2 spell effects, but and you know what? Because we have 2 channel divinities, we can 69 dudes again the next round. And boy, yeah, they're hating life, and so we're loving it. So, whew, okay. Now, in addition to Destructive Wave, we also get Insect Plague, which is a great area denial spell at range. We tend to like to get up and close and personal with the bads, and we do it really good. But when we don't have that opportunity, we can throw out an Insect Blade and, I don't know, maybe whip out a bow and shoot some arrows at some people that are stuck in that Insect Plague. But yeah, I'm really liking Destructive Wave at this level. So moving on to level 11, we pick up Divine Intervention, and this is really cool. It's not a high likelihood that it's going to happen when you ask the spirits or your god or the divine cats that rule us all to intervene on our behalf and, you know, make your foes, I don't know, dance on the head of a pen. I don't know. But when divine intervention does work and when your game master is nice, it can really, really alter the face of your campaign in some situations. So it's not something you want to forget. It really is amazing. And I mean, don't let the game master shortchange you on that. This is a cleric feature, and it's like one of the really cool story type campaign features that can really have an effect on the game. In addition, at level 11, our Booming Blade also increases in potency. So now, on a regular attack with our Rapier, we are doing 4d8 plus 3 damage. I mean, yeah, that's just amazing. And then in addition, if we cast Spirit Shroud to level 5, that goes to 6d8, which is really, really nuts. And if we do the same thing we did at level 10, we can Nova for a total of 148 damage if everything goes off. And that is a serious Nova for a Cleric. I mean, a Cleric, come on! Okay, so at level 12, we get our first 6th level spell and we pick up Heal. I know it might be hard to remember that we are a cleric at this point because we can just do so much awesome devastation. But yes, we are a cleric too, and yeah, we can heal our allies, and we have now just made ourselves a major healer because we have picked up the heal spell. Rolling into level 13, we bump our dexterity to 18, and checking in, our hit points are pretty good now, about 92, which is pretty much mid-range, but we're also probably upcasting aid now to level 3, so we're probably at 102. And our AC is relatively high. We still have the shield spell, so we're not feeling too scared. I mean, we don't want to tank the whole combat, but we are a healer, and we can heal ourselves too if we take a lot of damage. For spells, we have picked up Cone of Cold from the Prismari list, and I think at this point it's just good to use this as one of our prepared spells. We have so many blast options now, but why shortchange ourselves if we want to have like a 60-foot cone of cold that chills our enemies because they need to chill, right? Okay, moving on to level 14. We are 13 in Cleric, and we pick up the nice spell that is Regeneration to help add us a little bit more resiliency, or to help one of our buddies. I don't know. Growing back a limb is sometimes really cool. At level 15, we pick up another 1 die 8 damage from Divine Strike. So now we're doing 5 die 8 plus 4 base damage with our Rapier, and we can buff that up to 8 die 8 plus 4 if we decide to focus fire with Spirit Shroud. And with Radiant Soul, this can go all the way up to 8 die 8 plus 18 for a single strike. We're a cleric. This is nuts. Um, On a critical with Destructive Wrath, for a single blow, we can do 110 damage. I mean, hello. If we add in Spiritual Weapon and upcast that to level 6 and get some Thunderous Wrath in there, we're doing another 40 for a total of 150. And if Booming Blades Rider triggers, that's 163.5. And we're a cleric. Hello. Okay, and now we can also upcast Spirit Guardians to 7 die 8 and do 7 die 8 AoE damage adjacent to us as well. So we are just loving life at this point. I don't know. I mean, yeah, wizards have like some amazing stuff going on too, but I don't feel bad being a cleric at this point. I'm sitting pretty. I'm happy. I don't know about you. Okay, so moving on to level 16, we get 8th level spells as a 15th level cleric, and we go ahead and pick up Sunburst. Being able to drop this massive AoE, I think it's 60-foot radius, that does all like 12 die 6 damage and blinds all your foes that fail their save is just too good to pass up. And yeah, we like to throw down some blasts, and we are not going to pass up Sunburst, so we pick it up. By level 17, we get one more ability score increase, and we bump our wisdom all the way to 20. Now our spells are even harder to save for, and we have embraced the wise aspect of our moon of the pure waters, of the resilient life forms that live there, of our connectedness with nature and life and all the wonderful things in the worlds, in the many worlds. And by level 17, our booming blade just got more potent, so our melee attacks with the rapier are now a base of 6 die 8 plus 4 damage. At level 18, we get Stormborn, which lets us fly outside whenever we like. The airs of the world just lift us aloft, and we fly at our walking speed. And that adds some to our mobility as we walk upon the winds. Also, by level 18, we have 9th level spells, and we go ahead and pick up Mass Heal, because Mass Heal it's like the Meteor Swarm of healing. You're going to heal hundreds of hit points for your allies and bring them up, and they will love you for it, and then you will just blast the heck out of your foes after you do that. So yes, Mass Heal. At level 19, we gain another Channel Divinity for a total of 3. So now we can use Destructive Wrath to maximize our blasts 3 times. We're not laying down a Meteor Swarm like the Mage, but we can do some seriously severe consistent blast damage round over round with this Channel Divinity. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. And then last of all, by level 20, we use our final ASI to increase our dexterity all the way to 20. And so now we have both a 20 wisdom and a 20 dexterity. So what do we have at the end of our build here? At the end of our big bada boom Tempest Cleric-Sorcerer, we have the wonderful thunderous blows, we have devastating AoEs, and we have powerful heals. Our Lady of Ocean Storms has now reached her full potential, and at this point, I should just go ahead and walk you through some of the things that she can do if she just gets really crazy. Let's talk about Focus Fire. We do have Spirit Shroud. So if we just go nuts and upcast this to level 9, we're going to do 4d8 additional radiant damage on each of our attacks. If we activate Radiant Soul, we're going to do plus 20 radiant damage on one of our attacks. This means our rapier strikes now do 10d8 plus 25 damage. That's, doing some quick math, that's 70 damage average on a single strike. If we also cast Spiritual Weapon at level 8, it does 8d8 plus 5 damage, which is 41. So now the average damage from these 2 strikes, if they land, is 111 hit points. If Thunderous Wrath activates, our damage in a round increases to 120. And if Booming Blades Rider activates, it goes to 138. Now, if we roll a critical hit with a rapier, the total damage from a single strike on average is 150. And we're a cleric. I mean, I don't know. There are maybe some builds that can like do more damage in a single strike than this. Maybe, I don't know, on average, but this is a cleric that took cleric for 19 levels, took Azamar and dipped 1 level in sorcerer. And we can do 150 damage in a single strike. I mean, talk about elegant persuasion, right? Over the course of a round with Spirit Shroud activated, we can do 118 average damage if everything works out for us. I'm sorry, 218 average damage. So this is a lower range for like the high Nova builds, like the Nova builds that I've been putting together for you guys. But this is something that you can do not just once, but anytime you roll a critical, so long as you have Destructive Wrath. So you can do this 3 times. If you have an Amulet of the Devout, you can do this 4 times. If you, I don't know, if someone casts haste on you, you're doing easily mid 150s per round without critting. And if you crit, you're doing well into the 250s multiple times. And this is when you go Focus Fire. Now, if you decide to go nuts and cast Spirit Guardians instead at level 9, things aren't really that much different for you for a single target, but now you're adding 40 average damage to those within 15 feet of you if they fail their save. And so the total average damage on a single target, if you're focus firing, if they fail their saves, is 204.5 damage if Booming Blade activates. And you're also doing 40.5 damage to multiple targets around you if you're surrounded by foes. Now, if you decide to upcast Spirit Guardians and then use Destructive Wrath with Destructive Wave, you can easily do 80 to 100 damage against multiple targets within an area. And you can also do this multiple times. Now, Meteor Swarm will get you an average of 144 damage once. You do this twice, and you're doing more damage than Meteor Swarm, albeit not in much in as large of an area. If you have Radiant Soul active, you're doing an additional 20 damage each time to one foe. So you're kind of focus firing a little bit on one and doing ridiculous damage on multiple. So you're a very intense hole in the battlefield. And you're not a small hole, but I mean, you're not hitting the same area that wizards can, but boy, are you intense and boy, are you consistent. And I think this build is probably the best, has the best suite of consistent damage options so far out of all the builds. Particularly when you combine the fact that you can do heavy damage to a single target and heavy damage to multiple targets over multiple rounds. Don't forget that you are a cleric. Now, you might not want to upcast all these spells quite so high, but don't rob yourself. Please do upcast Spirit Shroud and Spirit Guardians and go to town because it's so fun. You might want to save your 9th level slot though for mass heal, particularly if there aren't any other healers in your party. What do you say, Crow? Should our Thunder Cleric, should our Merrin Valkire Big Bada Boom save her 9th level spell for mass heal? I think Crow says yes. Crow is a very loving and compassionate kitty. Let our clerics also be loving and compassionate. I mean, why did we play clerics anyway, after all? So that concludes our Merrin Valkire Big Bada Boom Tempest Cleric with a 1 level dip in Sorcerer build. I hope you have enjoyed it. I hope you use this build. It is so fun, and I yeah, I have played it so many times, both as in Adventurer League and in home games, and I have even used Merrin as an NPC in some of my games. Don't worry, I'm not going to like crazy DMPC people. I mean, if I'm using Merrin as an NPC, she's going to mainly be healing folks and buffing folks. But boy, is this Merrin build fun. I hope you do it. And it is really unconventional. It will surprise the socks off people. So thank you for joining me. I have really enjoyed sharing this build with you, and we shall return in another 2 weeks for another episode of Gish Optimized. I don't know what I'm going to do next. If any of you guys have any suggestions, please feel free to drop a note in my chat or or hey, whoa, we got a little host from an instant leader. Thank you for hosting us. So yeah, drop a question in my chat or send me an email or drop by my blog on scribblersfantasticalworkshop.com and leave a comment in the Gish optimized build, and I will maybe take you up on your build idea. I'm thinking maybe about doing a straight classed melee sorcerer. I've done this a few times. It's a lot of fun. I'm thinking maybe about going all in on a what I call an explosive pinata build. It's like it's a tank, but it kind of blows up. Um, so those are the two options that I'm kind of thinking about, but share your thoughts with me, please, and maybe I'll do one of yours. So in any case, thank you so much for joining me, and I will be back with you with Gish Optimized in the next 2 weeks. If you are just happy to watch all my various streams, we will have our next stream on Wednesday, and that will be the next episode of Hellkey. I believe this will be Hellkey 22, but don't take my word for it. I'll have to look through my notes. I will be reading Hellkey for you again. We are getting more and more into the depths of hell with Hellkey, which is a lot of fun. And so I will be reading that for you. No, I'm sorry. I said Wednesday. I will be reading that for you on Tuesday because we are doing 2 Hellkey readings a week now because I can't keep up. In any case, I will see you next for Hellkey. Thank you all so much, and